Shalom. First thing and foremost, I'm going to give all praises and glory and honor is due to YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, QADASH. Double honors to the apostles and elders of great millstone and rule well. Peace and blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect. Noise in the gospel, God, lifting up the standard of YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, wherever it may be. This is another lesson through the Spirit, Lord, it's going to be edifying. This is the third part of this video here. I was going into like a particular part series, maybe 6-7 part series, because of how the article is broken up. It says, when the grid dies, how a single blackout can unravel the modern world, which is part 3 of the lesson that I mentioned. And the first 2 parts actually went into the breaking down the second day, which is unraveling of ordinary life, meaning that life as we know it will take drastic changes, because for the simple fact, you know, the people in the Western hemisphere, not mainly in the, you know, the first world countries like America, Great Britain, France, you know, Denmark, you know, the more wealthier parts of the West, people are pretty much used to having abundant. All right, they're not used to having the bare necessities in order to survive. So day 2 goes into unraveling of ordinary life, meaning, you know, your jobs, your homes, you know, your dainties, being able to go as you please, will begin to take a toll for the worse, because for the simple fact, you know, that's how it's set up, you know. Anyway, let's go straight into it without further delay. So the third day, which is the 3rd through 5th days, because I mean they kind of break it up, so we're gonna break it up a little bit. But it says here, the 3rd through 5th days, the rot beneath the republic. And you know that America it's not really a democracy, but it's actually a republic. Okay, when you go into the word democracy, it goes into rule of the people. And America is ran by oligarchs, first and foremost. All right, this is not a people's republic, as they would like to say. You know? It's like, so anyway, it says the 3rd morning marked the beginning of widespread panic, meaning people are going to start to bug out, all right, because supermarkets or grocery stores being able to go and get certain items will be pretty much a thing of the past, because for one thing, you're going to have to deal with chaos and rioting, all right, looting. Like I mentioned in the other video, you may try to go get a pack of turkey legs or some shit, or drumsticks, and then somebody end up bust you upside the head because, you know, they want what you got. You know, and that's the type of world that we're getting ready to enter into, because we saw part of that during the C19 scamdemic, you know. But it says distribution centers can no longer function without electricity, digital logistics, or stable fuel deliveries. And remember, they're already talking about shortages on fuel because of the war in Iran, all right, and the closing of the strait, which that ceasefire just fell through, as the scriptures say that there's no peace unto the wicked. But it says here, freight systems stalled across country while trucks sat and mobilized besides empty highways because of refineries, pumping stations, and communication infrastructure had all collapsed together. Now, remember going back to 2020 when those supply chains were halted, you had cargo freight ships literally coming from parts of the straits, and they were being halted in certain parts of the Pacific, you know, because they couldn't dock them in. I mean, you literally had ships and barges sitting off the coast of Cali, I'm talking about, for months at a time. So that was a shortage of a supply chain there, right? But it says here, Americans discovered that growing horror that most supermarkets carry only a few days worth of inventory under normal conditions, because the average grocery store has only 3 days supply of food, you know. So let's just say if you got 1,000 people that's trying to go into Walmart and they loot it, they can clean that place dry within an hour, maybe shorter. But it says worth of inventory under normal conditions, but once panic buying consumed those reserves, nothing remained behind the shelves. But suburban neighborhoods transform almost overnight into armed enclaves gripped by suspicion and fear. It says residents organized patrols, and reports of burglaries and violent home invasions spread through fragmented radio broadcasts and word of mouth. Firearms disappeared from the store inventories whenever transactions remained possible, while ammunition became more valuable than cash in many regions. That's why the cost of bullets has gone up. Like right now, you got more people purchasing firearms more than ever before because they expect these nightmarish scenarios. Okay, prime example. When the grid goes down, you're going to have gangs, marauders. You're going to have people that's looking to take what you got. So if you're a person that look like you well off, somebody's going to pay you a visit, man. This is why, riding around, driving a car is just a car. But even then, that can make you a target based on the vehicle you drive, the type of neighborhood you live in. And a lot of times when you buy these big purchases, like I was always taught, if you're going to buy like a TV or something of that nature, it's probably best to do that overnight because people, they clocking your moment, they're clocking your moves. They watching you every step of the way. So if I buy a 75-inch TV, and I'm buying that motherfucker in broad daylight, then 9 times out of 10, somebody's watching, what he got in his house. Or they see you bringing in groceries every other day. That's going to stick in the back of people's minds, man, because they're going to look at you like, oh, shit, you well off. Or if you're pulling up in the foreign, people are going to look at it like, yeah, you got it. So, weapons have been a high commodity in today. But it says, inside major cities, darkness itself became dangerous. Without streetlights, illuminated buildings, or functioning transportation systems, urban centers transform at the sunset into mass labyrinths of shadow illuminated only by scattered fires and flashlight beams. Criminal organizations adapted to the collapse with terrifying speed, meaning gangs, marauders, YNs. Even though the YNs, they just gonna get put down, but you get the point. You're going to have militias and groups that's going to go around and they're going to look to ambush people. So if the Spirit of the Lord ain't with you in that day, then you're going to get cooked out here, man. But it says urban centers, pharmacies were raided systematically. Supply convoys transporting medicine or emergency food was ambushed before reaching shelters. And entire neighborhoods fell under the control of armed groups after local law enforcement effectively ceased functioning there, right? So people, just like in the movie The Last of Us. But it says behind closed doors in emergency command facilities, utility engineers deliver assessments so catastrophic, many officials initially refused to accept them. But several critical transformers had suffered irreversible destruction. But the colossal machines cannot simply be replaced from nearby warehouses because many require specialized manufacturing timelines measured not in days, but in months, even years. But the horrifying realization spreading through federal agencies was that the blackout might evolve into prolonged national collapse rather than a temporary infrastructure emergency, man. All right, so yeah, they're basically giving you a nightmare scenario. And this is basically Jacob's trouble because this is exactly what's going to go down. All right, so let's go from here to the book of Isaiah 19. And let's start at verses 1. It says, the burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud, and should come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt should be moved in all his presence, and the heart of Egypt should melt in the midst of it. Yeah, the spirit, the might. Okay, people are losing it. When you go to the stores, the grocery stores, people on edge, man, because of the hell that's coming on the planet Earth. And it says here, and I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight everyone against his brother, everyone against his neighbor, city against city, kingdom against kingdom. So this is civil war. So instead of going after the actual enemy, people are going to turn on one another because, it's just the convenient thing to do. So if you got a neighbor that look like he got a cellar full of food, why not go next door and take what he got to feed your family? Okay, and they showed you that in that movie The Road. They showed you that in a show The Last of Us. In video game as well, when basically what you're doing is going around and you're looking for supplies to collect to ensure your survival, man. And depending on what mode you play the game on, if you play it on expert mode, then, there's limited supplies. So you got to conserve your ammunition and you got to stay out of sight, out of mind. Because if not, it's detriment. So it's like a real life scenario because in real life, supplies are going to be limited, And it says, an Egyptian against the Egyptian, and they shall fight everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, kingdom against kingdom. And the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof. Yeah, and the spirit is going to completely fall. All right, because like I said, ain't nobody gonna be getting up, going to work, and trying to figure it out. Okay, people is gonna be trying to survive out here because, you know, the violence. And you women, you cook because, hey, you gonna try to get with a man in that day, and ain't no man gonna accept you. You know, so you women out there, hey, just good luck, because it's gonna be a dog-eat-dog world. But the spirit of Egypt should fell in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof, and they should seek to the idols, and to the charmers, and to them that have familiar spirits, and to the wizards. And you're seeing people ignite spirit mediums. You know, they're asking these prognosticators and these particular congressmen, you know, about the best course of action, because those wizards and those that got familiar spirits be those that sit in your government, as well as, you know, your spirituality or your spiritualists. Okay? And the Egyptians I will give over into the hand of a cruel lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, says the Lord of hosts. And the waters from the sea and the waters shall fail from the sea, and the rivers should be wasted and dried up. And they should turn the rivers far away, and the brooks of the fence should be empty and dried up, and the reeds and flags shall wither. So that goes your economic situation through. All right. It says by the 4th and 5th days, money itself had begun losing practical meaning, meaning the banks, the dollar collapsed. Banks remained closed. Electronic transactions were impossible. Debit cards, retirement accounts, investment portfolios, cryptocurrencies, and digital banking systems became inaccessible abstractions trapped inside perilous networks. Millions who have considered themselves financially secure only days earlier suddenly discovered that they could not purchase fuel, food, medicine, or transportation, regardless of how much wealth and technically existed in their account. So let's get that. Go back to the book of Ezekiel, 7th chapter, because it goes into that. All right. It's the book of Ezekiel 7. And let's start at verses 12. And it says, "In a time come, they that draw it near, let not the buyer rejoice, nor the seller mourn, for the wrath is upon all the multitude thereof." Okay. It says, "For the seller should not return of that which is sold, although they were yet alive, for the vision is touching the whole multitude thereof, which should not return, neither shall any strengthen himself in the iniquity of his life." So your money, your wealth, your fame ain't gonna make a difference. Okay, because when you go down here to verses 18, the start of 17, it says, "All hands should be feeble." Feeble goes into being fearful. Like, let's look up the word feeble. Weak. All right, without courage. All right, feeble goes into the word RAWCHAA, which means to seek down, to sink, to withdraw. Okay, to forsake, refrain. You know, shows oneself slack, meaning you're going to lose might. And the feeble, all the knees should be weak as water. And they should, because people are going to lose their hope, they're going to lose their might. And shall also gird themselves with sackcloth, which goes into humility and mourning. All right. It says, "And horror should cover them, and shame should be upon all faces, and baldness upon all their heads," which goes into mourning. It says, "And they should cast their silver in the streets, and their gold should be removed. And their silver and their gold should not be able to deliver them in the day of the wrath of Yahawah. They should not satisfy their souls, neither fill their bowels, because it is the stumbling block of their iniquity." Right? So right there shows you that you have wealth, it ain't gonna mean nothing. So if you're a millionaire, unless you got tangible assets, it ain't gonna make a difference. This is why the elites are hopping out. This is why you ain't gonna find the elites in America, man. You know, people talking about, well, I got bunkers, I got bunkers, I got bunkers. Okay, well, good luck to your bunkers, because what the people can't get, the missiles gonna get. And you'll be a fool if you got money to still be in America. If you got money and you a millionaire or a billionaire, you should have got out the country a decade ago, man. Like, if I wasn't in the truth and I was a billionaire, I wouldn't no way in fashion be in this country right now. I'd be in Switzerland, some goddamn where. You know, on an island somewhere, man. You know? But those of us we don't have that fortunate to be wealthy in this society, hey, we got the spirit of YAHAWASHI, and that's really all that matters, man. Okay, the Lord is going to deliver us, and we got to believe that. It's the book of Psalms 37, because this leads into famine and pestilence. But this is the book of Psalms 37, and I'm going to start at verses 16. It says, "A little that a righteous man hath is better than the riches of the wicked." And we have faith. That faith is going to have us to overcome in these dark and evil days. It says, "For the arms of the wicked should be broken, but the Lord upholdeth the righteous." So we're going to be taken care of. It says, "The Lord knoweth the days of the upright, and their heritage should be forever. And they should not be ashamed in the evil time, and in the days of famine they shall be satisfied, right? So we're going to be okay. Through the riot, the blackouts, the grid outages, the EMP, whatever you want to call it, we're going to be straight all the way up until the missiles come. You know, from the rioting to the pillaging to the martial law to the concentration camps, whatever may befall the brother's fate, at the end of the day, you stand behind YAHAWASHI. He's going to stand behind us. And it reads, and they should not be satisfied. I mean, they should not be ashamed in the evil days, and in the days of famine, they should be satisfied. But the wicked should perish, and the enemies of the Lord should be as the fat of lambs, and they should consume it to smoke, and they should consume away. So you people, you cook, man. All right? You cooked and then some. So several developments during the phase accelerated the national breakdown dramatically. Fuel distribution, right, and network ceased functioning almost entirely, which we're almost seeing that now because they're talking about by the 4th of July, the last cargo freight ship may already have been here and depleted. And then once gas goes back up, because gas is going down now, but I speculate in these cities because we have a World Cup here. That's the reason why we're seeing cheaper gas prices, which shows you that they can manipulate the shit. You know, but hey, gas can literally be $7, $6, $7 at the end of the summer. You know, and then once that ceases, and then there goes your distribution centers right there, because you need cargo or you need trucks or 18-wheelers to get food and goods distributed from the distribution centers to these supermarkets. And if you don't have the adequate supply, then that slows up. So everything that's coming in by ship, it won't have nowhere to go because you don't have the gas and a sufficient means of energy to transport it, which is going to cause prices to go up. People are going to panic. But fuel distribution networks cease functioning almost entirely. It says immobilizing emergency vehicles, freight systems, and civilian transportation simultaneously. Quick. Hospital generators begin failing under continuous operational stress, forcing medical personnel into catastrophic triage conditioning unlike anything seen in modern American history. Municipal sanitation systems collapse across multiple metropolitan regions, creating ideal conditions for disease outbreaks. There go your pestilence, all right? People are already immunocompromised from the three-pointer they took. Refugee moments intensifies as urban populations fled towards rural areas. See, there you go. It says those that flee into the field should eat themselves and should die of famine, roughly paraphrasing. So those of you jakes that think you're going to run out to the wilderness, hey, you're going to have someone waiting on you there because you got wild beasts, and a lot of you don't even know how to hunt for food. All right. Overwhelming small communities already struggling with dwindling resources. Public trust in federal authority deteriorated rapidly after the repeated promise of imminent restoration failed to materialize. But also the chip. Okay. Yeah, I can get at least 3 more videos out this article. So that's the plan. All right. Shit. Where am I at? Anyway, I got to hurry up and wrap it up. I actually got to get back to this training. But it says inside government facilities protected by military security, analysts quietly discuss mortality projections so catastrophic they bordered on incomprehensible. But under prolonged grid failure conditions, deaths and starvation, famine, disease exposures, untreated medical conditions, dehydration, and violence were expected to rise exponentially once existing food reserves vanish entirely. And that's what's going to get these slow bellies here to really rise up, is when the food gets touched. It says some emergency models projected that if restoration failed for several months, casualty levels could eventually surpass anything seen in modern American history. And 2/3 of the people here, they're going to die, okay? I'll put it to you this way. Everybody in this country is going to die unless they're of the elect. If you're not of the elect, you're going to die unless you go to a different country. But even around the world, judgment is going to follow because, people ain't going to be safe in the UK. People ain't going to be safe in parts of Africa. People ain't going to be safe in Israel. People are not going to be safe in France, Greece, So either way it go, you people are cooked. And if you're not of the Lord's elect, then, hey, you through. That's just what it boils down to, man. All right, 2nd Ezra 6. And I'm going to start at verses 22. It says, and suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. The full storehouses should be suddenly found empty, your grocery stores. All right. You ain't going to be able to have no online account. And you ain't going to be able to buy nothing from Amazon because nobody's going to deliver. So you have all this shit sitting in the warehouse, people looting and robbing warehouses to get basic necessities, man. Like during the time of Katrina, niggas was robbing and taking flat screen with TVs at the time. Niggas still in Jordans and shit, still in PS5s. How you gonna play not a PlayStation 5, but at that time, you had the PlayStation 2. I believe the PlayStation 2 was out at that time. Yeah, people still in PlayStations with no power. Like, what kind of sense does that make? And it says here, and the trumpet should give a sound, which when every man hear it, they should suddenly be afraid. And at that time shall friends fight against one another like enemies, and the earth shall stand in fear with those that dwell therein, and the springs of the fountain shall stand still, and in 3 hours they should not run. So, yeah, we're getting ready to see a global catastrophe, man. All right, YAHAWASHI, YAHAWASHI told us. He warned us. And we gonna need spiritual power. All right, we definitely gonna need that power. If we ain't got that power, hey, good luck. Last precept, it's the book of Isaiah 41 and 13. It says, for I, Yahawah, thy power will hold thy right hand, saying unto thee, fear not, I will help thee. But fear not, thou worm Jacob, and ye men of Israel. I will help thee, says the Lord, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. So we going to be cool, man. Those of us that stay faithful and grounded in this thing, may YAHAWASHI, YAHAWASHI protect us, our families, our loved ones, those that actually obey the words of YAHAWASHI, YAHAWASHI through the men of the Lord. Not just some nigga because he your brother that share the same mama or father or mother. That ain't what I'm talking about. But anyway, with that, call halal, YAHAWASHI, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, QADASH. Lord's will, you're edified. To the next lesson. Shalom.